January 18th, 2005, an anonymous message was sent throughout the United States and Canada titled Maoist Street Code. Maoism in the first world is not Maoism in the third world. The only way to hold high the great red banner of Marxism-Leninism-Maoism in the first world is to build up the first world lumpen proletariat. The labor aristocracy is the enemy of the revolution. It is the first world lumpen proletariat that must be revolutionized, recognizing that the base of revolution can only be found in the third world. The first world working class is ruled by the labor aristocracy, which connects itself to the middle class. The first world working class is usually labor aristocracy. Even when the first world working class is separate from the labor aristocracy, there is no lasting proletariat. The original Black Panther Party, as they were in the 1960s and the 1970s, is the first prototype to Marxism-Leninism-Maoism. With the study of the original Black Panther Party, correct analysis can be comprehended and advanced. Mao Zedong thought is not Marxism-Leninism-Maoism. Mao Zedong thought was the Marxism-Leninism of China during the time of Mao Zedong. The original Black Panther Party, as they were in the 1960s and the 1970s, applied Marxism-Leninism-Mao Zedong thought to their own condition, suffering under the brutality of the police. The Black Panthers took advantage of the contradictions in the capitalist republic, more commonly known as the United States of America. What the Black Panthers did was legal deterrence. Marxism-Leninism-Maoism emerged as a new revolutionary path to be upheld by the revolutionary internationalist movement, and the evidence was the shining path led by Manuel Rubel Abimel Guzman Reynoso. The revolutionary international movement was destroyed by Guzman and had become reactionary. This does not stop Marxism-Leninism-Maoism. People's war in the third world and legal deterrence in the first world. The third world must carry out people's war. This is evident. Advancements in people's war in both theory and practice can only be discovered by the third world Maoists. What the first world Maoists have to maintain is legal deterrence. This legal deterrence can only be done by establishing a common law for revolutionaries in the first world. Maoist common law, street code, and international stance. Marxism-Leninism-Maoism can only be grasped by understanding the fundamentals of the enemy. The enemy of the proletariat is the enemy of all revolutionaries. The Patriot Act signed by President George W. Bush is a contingency plan to put down revolution, a furthering continuation of COINTELPRO. Maoists in the first world, well versed in the correct line of revolutionary science for our time, requires that we know what determines revolution in the first world is the lumpen proletariat. The first world lumpen proletariat lost class consciousness due to the effects of counterintelligence program. We must reawaken the lumpen proletariat to class struggle. This is easier said than done. The obligation of the first world revolutionary is the obligation to sabotage the bourgeois first world. The first world revolutionary has another obligation, an obligation to the proletarian third world. Maoist common street law dictates, as it must, an infringement against the anarchists is an infringement against the Maoists. Maoist common law street law dictates that, as it must, an infringement against the Marxist-Leninist Maoists is an infringement on anarchists. We must unite with the anarchists on what we agree with. We struggle with the anarchists on what we disagree with. Marxism-Leninism is outdated. However, Marxist-Leninists hold relevance in the post-Soviet Eastern Bloc. Many infringements on our confused Marxist-Leninist comrades is an infringement on the Marxist-Leninist Maoists. Attacks and infringements on Maoists damage the work of Leninists and thus cannot be tolerated. We must struggle against narcotics flooding the urban streets of the first world. We must struggle against racism because it destroys class struggle. We must protect anarchists when they are under the attack of fascists. We must protect the poor because we can never win them over if we show apathy. Yet, we must never give in to counter-revolutionary appeals to emotion. serve the people, combat liberalism, defend correct ideas, reject incorrect ideas. Marxism-Leninism-Maoism is the highest stage of Marxism, and this Maoist street code is the constitution of Maoism in the First World. It is correct to rebel against reactionaries. It is correct to show solidarity for anarchists when they need it. It is our obligation to struggle with anarchists when we see incorrect views propagated by them. It is even correct and necessary to see the best anarchists as comrades. We must establish rebel journalism with a serious stance against imperialism, colonialism, and fascism. We must develop self-reliance, self-defense programs. We must form rebelling cooperatives that do not exploit the Third World. We must create eco-friendly plans to ensure the survival of the planet, or we will all perish. We must lift up Native Americans and help them in their struggle against colonialism. The Native Americans hold the key to saving the environment. We must stand with radicals who combat fascism. It is counter-revolutionary to ignore dangerous, incoherent fascist reactionaries and their political movements. We must build Antifa cells with anarchists, or we may all very well wake up in prison camps. We beat the fascists before. We can beat them again. The Maoist Street Code is the foundation to building the necessary united front against the enemies of revolution.